Moondancer, Spike, A True Love by Swedish dub. Ever since after Moondancer and Twilight became good friends again after so many years, Moondancer has started to get more new friends in Canterlot as well. Even she sometimes visits Twilight in Ponyville from time to time. But now that she misses something else in her life, and that is her special song pony. Since after Twilight had left Canterlot for the first time in years after she met Moondancer, she actually started to work at the Canterlot library after that Twilight had asked Celestia for help. Moondancer was more beyond happy that Twilight had helped her get her dream job. Sometimes she even studied the new books she brought from the library at her home, sometimes during nights. But one night she couldn't even read so much about this magic or study. All she could just do is thinking about her to find her special song pony. But since she never have found her special song pony yet, and she has never been dated ever in her life, so she has no idea how about a date. Even she study other ponies, what they're doing on their dates or reading about it, but at the same time she realized that is not the same thing. Something that you should have experienced yourself in person. But since no pony had ever asked her out, so she wonders, will any stallion ever ask her out? That was a big question for her. So one day when she went in Ponyville to visit Twilight, Twilight can notice that the Moondancer was a little bit quiet, and even she was not usually herself. Since they became good friends again, she was very happy. And all her letters from to Twilight, she describes her life is very happy, but with some of her friends, that she has made new friends, and that she loves her new work. But she could notice that Moondancer is very down. For some other reason, she even asked Moondancer what was wrong with her. But Moondancer didn't say much except that she was okay. But then, when they were just sitting there and talking, Spike walked in with a plate with a can with some cup of teas and some sandwiches. When she saw Spike, she couldn't stop blushing. At first she thought that because Spike was just friendly to her, since she had known Spike since he was just a smaller baby dragon. But over the time since he moved from Canterlot to Ponyville with Twilight, she started thinking about Spike. Is he the right or anything? Since after he had left the room, Twilight can notice that Moondancer had looked at Spike. She even asked her what she's looking at Spike for. Oh, nothing. It's just that I can't remember how much he gave me some presents back in Canterlot when you lived there, said Moondancer. Oh, said Twilight. Yeah, he usually do that to any pony, said Twilight. But deep down, Moondancer realized Spike might be some special song pony that she has been looking for. But at the same time, will it ever work? I mean, she is a pony, a unicorn, and that he is a dragon. And she wonders if there was any laws against it. She even asked Twilight if there's any possible referral if a pony would even date another creature, like a griffin, dragon, or any other creatures. And Twilight said it was not against the law, because it never had been used for. And since recently a pony did marry a griffin, So she was not against the law. So Moondancer thought of thought maybe that she could maybe ask Spike if he would like maybe go out with her or just spend some time with her just themselves. But at the same time, he was just scared. She was scared that Spike would reject her like many others would have done. So, but she wanted at least try. So the next day, when Twilight was away from the castle, she asked Spike when he was in the kitchen if if he would like to maybe do something with her, like maybe go to a cafe or just go to the park, just spend some time. And Spike said he would like to do that. And just after he finished with some dishes, he and Moondancer actually went to a local restaurant or cafe nearby just to grab something to eat. And for the most part, Moondancer was a little bit quiet, but she started blinking the eyes just to telling her about what has happened in Camp Doctor recently, how she likes her new work, there's many other things that happen. And especially after when Storm King was defeated. And Spike was actually just listening to her carefully. She realized that Spike might be the right true love for her, but at the same time, she was still scared even to tell Spike about it. So after they left the restaurant, that is the cafe, they took a stroll through town just to talk to each other, just to keep company. They met some other friends like Applejack, Applebloom, Galaxy Star, Terak and their dear family, and even Vinny the Dragon, even Sakura. Most of their friends all agreed on the back, and for the first time in many years, Moondancer felt home, accepted more. She felt connected with Spike rather than any other stallions or other creatures she had met. Even that same night when she was in her guest room at the castle, she was laying on the bed, she couldn't even sleep. She thought a lot about Spike because all the stories he told her about when he helped her to defeat the Storm King, Chrysalis, and even Terak for the second time. But she was actually very interested in Spike's stories. But she realized also that she heard talks about that Spike was interested in the mare, in Rarity of all ponies. But he only knew that she was already engaged with Fancy Pants. Even he told Rarity about his true feelings for her. But it wasn't the same thing. She wasn't even love Spike in the same way as he's in her. Spike was very hurt about this. Even he pretend to be okay, that he's always happy, but deep down, he's very hurt. His heart was broken, and it still are. He knew that he would never find his special soul pony ever again. Even sometimes middle of the night, Spike is laying on his bed, just crying that he said that he would never find his special soul pony. So he wonders, will he ever find her? For the next couple of days, Spike spent more time with Moondancer just to realize she was very more friendly than usually. She often smiled at him more, she even helped him with some of the dishes, grocery stores, and anything that's possible. Even then, he asked her that he needed any help, but she often asked him if he could need some help her with something, and she did. For the most part, Spike had then heard some talking about from Twilight and Moondancer, but the other day he actually hearing them talking. You haven't spent so much time with Spike lately. Is something going on between you two? And Moondancer was quiet. because she didn't know how even Twilight would even react, and she told her about it. And Moondancer took a deep breath and told exactly what was going on. And she was prepared for Twilight to say that she should at least stay away from Spike and just stop looking for a relationship with Spike because he's a dragon, that he's too young for you, that you should try to find some other pony in your own age. But she didn't. Twilight instead said, I'm just happy that you love Spike, and at least that you have perhaps you found this special sound pony. Have you even told Spike about this? No, I haven't, said Moondancer. I'm kinda too scared. But Moondancer didn't know how to say it. Moondancer was too afraid to tell Spike about her true feelings. And Spike just had barely left the room in the hallway just when Twilight and Moondancer came out. And Spike was very, very shocked and even surprised that Moondancer had strong feelings for him ever since after they first met 3 years ago. And Spike, he never thought another mare would even love him. Even he loved Rarity for so long time. But he didn't want to break another pony's heart, because he even liked her even more than as a friend. But he didn't realize it that same night. He was sitting on his bed. He couldn't even sleep. He tried to read some comics books to try to some sleep, but it didn't work. He read almost like 10 comic books until he read all of them. Even he read some of the older ones, and he tried to read some of the new ones over again, but it didn't work. He realized he was deep in love with Moondancer, and he wanted to tell her. So already next morning, after that Twilight had left the kitchen, went back to do some practice, Spike was waiting there for Moondancer to come, and she did. At first, Spike just greeted her as normal, but then during breakfast, Spike told Moondancer that he had heard of her talk with Twilight the other day, and she was very blushing about it. She was so red in her face. She couldn't even realize that Spike actually heard every detail about the words he said to Twilight. She was so red. She was so embarrassed about this. But Spike said, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And Moondancer looked at Spike as a surprise, and he smiled at her and said that he loved her as well. He realized now that he had strong feelings for her as well. Because after his experience with Rarity, he never thought that he would never find his true love. But he did with Moondancer. And then he even asked her if she would maybe want to go out with him tonight. And all she could do was just nod. And exact same night at 6 p.m., they went to a local restaurant, and they all had a great time there. And even the same restaurant had its karaoke machine. And after the dinner, Spike and Moondancer actually sang together a couple of songs, and the other guests in the restaurant was cheering because they were so great, they were so good together singing. And then they realized how much more they had in common. They both loved to sing, they both loved to help Twilight, and even have almost the same comments than each other. So Spike then had asked her if she wanted to be with him, and she said just yes. They even went back to the castle to tell Twilight about it, but she had already got to go to bed. So they decided to tell her tomorrow morning. So the next day at breakfast, Twilight was already in the kitchen eating her breakfast when Twilight, Spike, and Moondancer came down. She was just greeted them, they greeted them back, and they said something to tell her. And Moondancer was just so red in her face she couldn't even look at Twilight. She was afraid that Twilight was feeling it maybe was too wrong to be together, but to the opposite. Twilight was not at that. She was actually even more happier. She actually jumped up on the stair from the chair and ran faster right to Spike and hugged them over and over. And even she hugged Moondancer over and over. She was so happy for both of them. Because she realized how much they both really care for each other, even so after a long time after they realized it. Spike, I'm just so happy for you, said Twilight. Even Spike was so happy to be with Moondancer. And just a couple of days later, she had to go back home. But they still write letters to each other back and forth as often as they could. And even Spike went to Canterlot to see her. And from that day, their relationship grew stronger and stronger for each day that passed. Even his friends was very supportive. Soon, Spike decided maybe that he was actually the only one who loves her so much. And Spike was very happy to be with Moondancer for eternity. But Spike even realized he will live for a number of centuries more, but Moondancer won't. But that didn't matter for him. Even he will live for the next 1,000 years, but he still will love her no matter what will happen. And in fact, after they had been together for a number of years, Spike actually proposed to her at a local restaurant in Canterlot. And it was so romantic moment. He actually had placed the ring inside a cupcake. When she saw it, she couldn't even stop crying of happiness. Every pony in the restaurant was so cheering about this great moment. Even the staff was also cheering for the moment. After they told their friends and families about this, they all were so happy exactly for Spike and Moondancer. And the wedding, it was actually held in Canterlot about a year later, during the summer. Moondancer had asked Twilight to be her bridesmaid, and even Spike had asked Big Macintosh to be his best man. And they had asked Discord to be the ring bearer. And he did accept it. But the day before the wedding, Spike had been on this bachelor party with Discord, Shining Armor, Big Macintosh, and it was a great night, especially for Spike. Even it was his last day of freedom to be free. But he didn't want to break up or leave Moondancer because he loved her so even more beyond life itself. And Moondancer, she could never be more happy to be with Spike. And after the wedding, it was a big party that which all her friends had organized with Pinky's help. And afterwards, Spike and Moondancer went to Crystal Empire for the first a week. Then they went to Las Vegas for the next 2 weeks. And their honeymoon, it was very something that they both very much enjoyed. And what happened? Well, Spike actually moved to Canterlot with Moondancer, but he still worked for Twilight. Even he traveled back and forward over it sometimes. And sometimes he stayed in Ponyville for a few days or a week. Then he moved back home to Canterlot for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, after a month. But then, 5 years later, Moondancer told Spike that she was pregnant with triplets. And Spike was more beyond happy to be a father. And soon they had 3 daughters of their own. Both of them was half pony, half dragon, and all of them had inherited his father's fire-breathing ability and even their strength, but also their mother's magic ability and talent. Spike and Moondancer could never be more happier to be remarried to each other, they even had their family together. And that's how Moondancer and Spike found their true love and got them married. The end.